Good morning, everyone. This is Russell Rucker, and I'm here for another constitutional talk. A lot of our departments really aren't that constitutional. They were done outside of the Constitution, and that's the point I want to make today. When you talk about Article 1, for instance, it spells out a lot of different things. It gives Congress the authority over copyrights and patents. It discusses the postal service, defense, commerce. It discusses just all the different duties that Congress has, and all the spending bills has to start in the House, and the role of the Senate, and all these things. But one of the things I want to bring up here, and I did mention this in Textualism, my book, some of the executive departments are listed here, like that of Commerce, the Department of War, which is now the Department of Defense, the Postal Service, the Department of the Treasury, the Department of Justice, where you get to Article 3, you discuss a lot about justice, and the Department of State, originally referred to as Foreign Affairs, the Department of the Interior, duties, which were originally in the Department of State, and that's at the time they called that kind of the Department of Everything, because everything was locked in under the Department of the Interior. These departments are in the Constitution. They are what we would refer to as constitutional departments, because they're spelled out. They're telling us that we have to have defense. We have to regulate commerce. It tells us what we're allowed to do, what states are allowed to do, what happens with tariffs and duties, and all these different things are kind of spelled out. But there are other departments that aren't, like the Department of Labor. The Department of Energy. Department of Energy was established because of our oil problem way back when. Department of Education was established by an executive order by Jimmy Carter, and then passed by Congress. And that happened, I believe, in 1979. These things were never adjusted constitutionally. No amendments were ever sent, and nothing to update the Constitution. And that's why I would refer to them as unconstitutional departments, because it was never sent to the states. The states never ratified it, so the states never agreed to do any of these things. And I don't have a problem with these departments. The problem is how they came to be. And they weren't done within the framework, within the Article 5 method of adopting new amendments. So they were never correctly instituted into our Constitution. So they're kind of unconstitutional, extra constitutional, any kind of phrase you'd want to discuss them as. And a lot of people want those repealed because they aren't in the Constitution. But the answer to this problem probably would have been to do it properly to begin with, or have Congress send an amendment that would allow all that. Either that or repeal of these departments, because they aren't within the Constitution. There's a lot of movements on both sides of that argument, and I really don't want to get into the logistics of it. But when you're talking about, like, the Department of Education, for instance, most all of us were educated without it at some point, greater majority of the entire republic. And it's not that there wasn't education. In fact, most of our founders were highly educated, starting at 14, in all kinds of institutions. Colleges, Yale and Harvard were in existence. College of New Jersey, I believe that is now Brown's. There were a lot of different places where people were getting educated, and of course, at one point we started basic education, and a more elementary education in one of them schoolhouses all through the country. So we did have a lot of that. One of our founders expressly, I believe it was Pickerson or Pickney, excuse me. I don't know why I keep calling him Pickerson, but Pickney, he wanted to establish national university for education. Of course, we never got that through either. Many of these departments had an explicit mission, like Department of Energy was to keep the price of energy low. And a lot of these missions of a lot of these departments have just failed. We never achieved the goal of the departments. And that's one of the reasons there have been moves to end these departments over the years. So now, here we are. We're going through a lot of a discussion based on the worth of this department or that department. We've built a huge government bureaucracy, a huge government over time. And that's where the real question comes in. Is it worth it to have a large, expanding governmental state? Or do we want, as our founders believed, more of a limited government? Depending on which side you fall on, that may depend your belief in politics and government. I'm not going to argue that either one is right or wrong. Just want you to understand the differences we face as a nation, as a people, and why we have such a division between the parties of their general philosophy. The Constitution, the constitutionality is very important. And having a judiciary that's based on original intent, original thoughts, what it was perceived to be at the time is important. And it's worth study. Whether you agree with a more limited role or whether you believe in a more progressive government, it's still worth discussion and understanding what our founders intended and what our Congresses intended as they passed specific amendments forward. We will be talking at some point about some of these amendments that are still out there that just haven't passed because they never had an end date, as most amendments do today. But I thought you'd like a little more understanding, especially as we hear discussions on some of these departments and the actual beginning of some of these, and those that are specifically spelled out in the Constitution, like the post office, for instance, like your adherence to copyrights and patents, and giving duties, and the ability to collect taxes is in there. All these things that some people want to argue against, many of them are right in the document itself. The Constitution is worth reading and it's worth understanding. And that's the important thing. If you take nothing more from what I've been talking about for a year and a half now, it's worth discussion, it's worth reading, it's worth understanding. And that's what this channel's about. Please subscribe to me, like me. It helps me a lot develop and get as big an audience as we can here. And I know we're really in our infancy. But follow me so that you don't miss the important discussions we have. It's only a few minutes out of your time every week. I thank you for your time today, and we'll catch you next time on the next Constitutional Talk. Bye for now.